So we'll like to begin with a greeting and a welcome to Napa Salineno Audubon. This is our May meeting, which is our last meeting of the spring. So our next meeting will be September the 14th. And our featured guests will be our very own David and Denise Hamilton, sharing a program from their African safari. So don't miss out on that one. Is bound to be very exciting. We're gonna go through announcements relatively fast. We have about 10 minutes of announcements, and then hopefully people will be joining in. But our meetings are always the second Thursday of the month. So the next month that we have a meeting is September the 14th. Okay, so April's presentation, we hope everyone enjoyed that. Robin Leong gave a presentation on his trip to Antarctica, and I heard someone in the audience had been to Antarctica too. And they were really thrilled to see his pictures. So hopefully everyone enjoyed that. Currently, today's meeting is our election meeting. So we begged people to apply for officers, but no one did. So the current slate of officers, which are Tom Sliker as Vice President, Helena and David Castle as our Secretary and Treasurer, and myself as President. There's only 4 elected officers. The rest of the people who serve on the board are people who volunteer and we invite to join us. So if you're interested in joining the board and helping out and maybe taking over before too long, please let us know. And you can email Carol Boykin or myself or Tom Sliker, and we will definitely have your name. So with that, indeed, since no one else has applied, we'll just have a vote of approval for next year's slate of election or election slate. So can I hear a aye? All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Aye. If you're opposed, you're going to take over. Thank you. All right. So next on our agenda is our monthly field trips. So unfortunately, the May field trip last Saturday was rained out, but it was postponed to this Saturday. And in fact, they will be going to Manfred Kusch's house, which is on the south side of Puda Creek, a place that's private property and very challenging to get to. So I've heard there might be still a couple spots. So if you're interested in going, I believe the takeoff is 7:30 from Sweeney Sports, and we'll meet at Manfred Kusch's house at 8:30 a.m. There is carpooling from Sweeney Sports. If you're interested, Wendy Cole is our coordinator, so contact Wendy Cole. Her information has been in the e-blast regarding the trip. Our June field trip will be on Saturday, June 3rd, and it's a trip to the outer point of Point Reyes. And at least I will be leading it. We're not sure about Lucas's presence yet, but maybe he'll come along, we'll see. And we'll be going to as many hot spots as we can get on the outer point. Those of you who haven't been there, the outer point is probably the best West Coast spot in all of California for spring and fall migrants. It's even better in the fall, and the spring can vary from day to day based on weather conditions and wind direction. But we'll see as many hot spots as we can get to. We'll look for as many passerines and other fun birds that we can find. That is Saturday, June the 3rd. Thankfully, we have Andrew Ford working with us, and he is going to be leading a trip to, I believe, Puda Creek, and he's sending out an e-blast tonight. Andrew's often out of town, so he comes in town usually on Thursdays, and that's when he sends out the e-blast. So if you're interested in going to Puda Creek on the north side with Andrew, maybe we'll all meet up somewhere and go out to Lake Salineno for lunch. We're not sure. Tom Sliker, Carol Boykin, and Tom, is it Judy Kale who works with you for your beginner bird walks? Lori Puzo have been doing a number of beginning bird walks, and they have started at American Canyon Wetlands, but now that a lot of the ducks and shorebirds have taken off, they have been doing their beginning bird walks at Benicia Community Park. So Tom will post the next beginning bird walk. Do you know the date yet? But it's coming up before too long. I want to have a huge thank you for Betty LaPatista, who coordinated our work volunteers for Earth Day and cleaned up a section of the restored part of Napa Creek in downtown Napa. They had 20 volunteers that came and helped. I'm not sure if anyone here helped, but they picked up a lot of garbage to try to clean up that part of the creek. And that is incidentally the same creek, the same section of the creek where Lucas and 3 high school students did point counts probably 5 years ago. And in 1 year, they found 78 species in downtown Napa, including such treats as western tanagers, black-headed grosbeaks, and possibly even a Costus hummingbird. They found a ton of birds down there, and it was very exciting. And a blue grosbeak. Yeah. So that was led by Alex Green when he was here, and our education coordinator. He did a spectacular job. Okay. Then next, I'd like to thank all of those people who participated in the Birding Big Day the weekend before last, right? Was it the weekend before last? And we had—
Was it last weekend?
It was last weekend, the 29th. Oh, time flies. So I've been so busy, but we had at least 3 teams and a number of individuals who went out. This was a potential opportunity to raise some money for Napa Solano Audubon to support our education programs. I have not heard specifically from Robin Leong, but is anyone here? Did anyone go with Robin? I heard through the grapevine that Robin's team saw 144 species. And if so, they took the prize of winning the most, but if they're not here, they won't enjoy the tart. I had a group of 5 people going out, and one by one person got COVID. One person was too exhausted to get up early with us. Another person's fiance said no, he had to go look at wedding venues. And the last person, I'm trying to think, oh, yeah. No man wanted to do that, but he was directed to do that. So, and Lucas was another person that decided he'd go to the outer point instead because there are a lot more birds. Anyways, I went up Pleasance Valley Road into the up Mix Canyon to the top of Blue Ridge. And I decided, since I was by myself, I was going to take my time and photograph what I saw. I saw a rock wren, a bell sparrow, a rufous crowned sparrow, probably 15 pairs of lazuli buntings, black-headed grosbeaks. And then I got a call from Lucas saying, Dad, there's a solitary sandpiper at the corner of Allendale Road and Leisuretown Road. You should go there and see it for part of your big day. So I went there, no solitary sandpiper. I waited 10 minutes. I was scanning every single greater yellowlegs, 15 minutes. All of a sudden, from behind this little island, out pops the solitary sandpiper. So I saw a solitary sandpiper. And then I finished up at American Canyon Wetlands, and much to my surprise, almost all the ducks were gone. I got 2 gadwalls and 4 green-winged teal, but there were quite a few shorebirds way out on the mud flats that I was able to ID. So I wound up with 101 species. So, and I had a sponsor who paid $1 a species. So we raised some money. So congratulations to all those people who went out. But you can't go on because there's a pipe. Okay. Okay. At the bottom. Okay, so the next announcement is our school programs have been really running strong, especially all spring. Tammy Saunders, our education coordinator, is just wrapping up. She has been just in the last few weeks to Browns Valley Elementary, Donaldson Way Elementary, and Willow Elementary. and done a fabulous job. She's seen nearly 1,000 student days this year, which is pretty spectacular. And she roped me into going to Sassoon, and I've been working at Crescent Elementary School, and I've had a ball giving these lessons that Tammy has helped us develop. It's really been fun. And Tom Sliker and I are going there tomorrow morning to go bird watching with the kids that have endured my lessons. So it's been a lot of fun. Tammy has created these games that go with each lesson, and the kids are completely involved. It's been great. So in my 3 lessons, we did bird diversity, we did bird song, and bird migration. And those were topics chosen by the teachers. And they were very excited to learn about different bird songs and how they sing, and also about migration and all the perils that birds face when they migrate. So it was a lot of fun. I'd like to just wrap up by saying our current citizen science projects. We have a bunch of citizen science going. Tom is coordinating the teams monitoring bluebird boxes. So if you have a free day and want to help him, get a hold of Tom Sliker. He'll put you on a team, and it's a lot of fun to watch the bluebirds go from eggs to hatched birds to fledglings and out and flying. Last year, I think we fledged over 200 bluebirds in our boxes in Napa and Salineno County. It was really perfect, wonderful. We also have surveying teams that work with National Audubon's Climate Research Project. We have a least tern and snowy plover survey going on. I just met with a biologist from U.S. Fish and Wildlife today, and we went out there. We're hoping the least terns are going to come back. There's Robin. He can confirm that he went out on the big day and won the big day. We got you some tart. Okay, so we're also surveying an egret colony that we've just found on the International Bird Rescue, actually the Flyway what's it called? The Flyway Center's land in Sassoon, and 2 trees have over 100 nesting egrets. It's really amazing. And we took it's in Sassoon, off from Gold Hill Road. And we took 50 6th graders there this week on Monday. It's been a long week. And they had a really good time. A lot of the kids got into counting how many egrets were there. And they counted, one team counted 75, and there were lots of egrets out in the marshes too. So over 100. And we got to see a American bittern out there in the marshes. Yeah.
Can I make a comment?
Sure.
We're going to retire doing the Air Island Reserve. And if somebody wants to replace us, perfectly.
You survey that, Robin?
The heron and egret.
Oh, okay, okay. Okay, so
is that on the tip of the island, that preserve?
Robin Leong is asking for volunteers to help volunteer the heron and egret colony on Mare Island. So
we need to teach them how we do it. There's 2 more sessions for us in June.
Okay, so in June there's 2 sessions, and he's willing to teach people how to do it. Basically, you're going to be counting herons and egrets, and it's pretty easy because they're big. You can't miss them. You can miss them. They hide in those trees. But if you're interested in volunteering for that, please get a hold of Robin Leong or myself, and we'll get you out there. So Tom and his crews have also been doing weekly bird seasons every week at American Canyon Wetlands and Benicia Community Park, and they've done a sensational job with that program. So my hat's off to Tom and his colleagues that have been doing that. If you're interested in getting involved in citizen science, get a hold of Tom Sliker or myself. Our emails and phones are on the website, so go visit the website. That reminds me, I wanted to really encourage people to visit the website, because that's where we post our announcements, and events and activities are always up there. Sometimes I'm a little bit behind, but in general, it's up to date. Judy Kale just informed me today with our membership report, she's our membership chair, that we now have over 400 members in Napa Salineno Audubon. We have over 300 memberships, And more than 100 of those are families with more than one person. So we certainly have plus two, plus two more. Yeah, yeah. Oh, great. So let's see if I've called. Oh, yeah. I forgot to mention on our birding big day, Carol Boykin's team nicknamed themselves Bird Brains. And I nicknamed my team Hans Solo. And Robin, what was the name of your team?
He didn't go out, but I have a check.
Oh, he didn't go out. Someone told me you saw 150 species.
We did a WFO bird fund.
Oh, okay.
We saw 140.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
Day.
On the same day.
No,
Well, it doesn't have to be the same day.
Yeah.
So that's great. So you won. You won a piece of tart. Okay. So tonight's presentation, we have a phenomenal presentation tonight. Some of the best photos I've ever taken were on our Texas trip. We have a lot of photos. So we're going to speed through. And if you start going to sleep, nudge the person next to you. And we'll try to get through in an hour, hour and 15 minutes. Last spring, Lucas and I decided we'd go to Texas. So we started planning the trip, and lo and behold, one of his best young birder friends was already planning a trip too. And we met up in Texas and we spent 10 days birding. It was just a fantastic trip. So I am now going to jump to sharing my screen. See if this works. Oh, let's see what happened. Let's see. I might need a technical support.
No, hit share.
Hit share. Okay.
You gotta turn it on.
Oh, right here.
Yeah, turn it. Yeah, let me do it.
Okay. Good. I have my techie right here. No, cancel. No.
And it won't let you.
Oh, use password. Go ahead. No. What is that? This is a new computer, and we may have to quit and start over again. We're trying not to have to do that. Let's see if we can do it. Oh,
there we go.
There we go. Where is it?
Hit it.
No, that's the Zoom meeting.
Oh.
So apps, no files.
Wait, what are you using the photos through?
Keynote. It's already started, but sorry about this, folks. We'll get this. It's possible. It didn't work. So the Zoom wants to have a password for us to share our screen, which it's never done before. We're going to try it one more time if it will. And if it doesn't, we may have to quit and restart.
Right there. You are.
Oh, we got it. We got it.
Okay. No, it's Tom.
Oh,
isn't it? There. Hit it.
Yep, that's it. Yes, that's our screen. Just click on it. No, not yet. Okay.
Hold on, hit that. No. Can you guys see our screen at all?
No. Okay. No, but I got to see it too. So let's see.
You go there. There.
Is that the?
Yeah.
Okay. Can
everyone see it?
If people can for just a second turn on their volume and let me know if you can see this on your screen.
If we can see it,
we're about to present. Where did the present button go? Here we go.
I can see it.
Okay, perfect. So I'm gonna.
It's visible.
Okay, good. Where's the present on this? Oh, this is the chat. That's why.
Just give it to me.
Okay, just perfect. And hit the triangle. See, this is in the way. That's the problem.
Move it.
I know. I'm trying. You know what? We can hide those. We can hide those. So hide them. There we go. Put them way down at the bottom. So now,
Well, it's so big.
okay, I know we're gonna hide the preferences for Zoom. Sorry, folks, we're almost there. We've almost got it solved, I think.
Hide video.
No, that's video.
Hide names of
Hide.
Floating meeting controls.
Yeah. There. Okay, perfect. So now go hit back here and hit the plate. There we go. I think you should be seeing it now. If you're online, can someone just unmute themselves and let us know that you can see it? Maybe David can check on his phone.
I can see it.
You can see it?
I can see it.
See mine.
Oh, spring birding in Texas. So for the first time ever, Lucas's spring vacation was near the end of April, which is perfect time to go spring birding in Texas, because that's when the passerines are migrating through. And so we set off on April the 14th. We were a day ahead of Connor because he still had another day of school. And this is a picture at the end of our trip with Connor and Lucas and I.
Good Mexican restaurant.
Yeah, at a great Mexican restaurant. There was good food in Texas. So this map shows you how large Texas is. And the red dots show you places. Can you see my cursor on your screen?
Yes.
The red dots show you places we visited. And between these places, we drove over 2,000 miles. And we didn't get to anything out by the Rio, by Big Bend or northern Texas at all. So Texas is a big state. So
from Galveston to the Rio Grande alone was like 8 hours.
Yeah, so. It was a long way.
We did that in one night. So yeah.
So here's another map that's a little more spread out. And I included this map because it shows you where Houston is, where San Antonio is. So our first few days were up in this area, just right on the Gulf Coast near Houston. Then we drove through Corpus Christi down to the Rio Grande and South Padre Island area. And then we went back through Corpus Christi in order to get up to Lost Maples up here by San Antonio before returning to Houston and going to one more place up here on the day we flew out. So that gives you some perspective. This map actually names the places, and we won't take too much time to name them, but we started out at Sabine Woods, which is Texas Ornithological Society's reserve up here. And we went to Anahuac National Wildlife Refuge and Bolivar Flats Audubon Shorebird Sanctuary. That's where we started at the trip. So here are some of the hot spots we visited. We have this list and we can send it to you if you're interested in where we went. The boys researched for several days where to go. And so we wound up with this list. So the very first place we went to was called J.J. May's Wildlife Trace. We had flown in, it was about 1 or 2 in the afternoon. We drove east toward the little town of Winnie where we were gonna stay in our hotel. And right along the highway driving to Winnie was this wildlife trace. And the first bird we saw was this, okay? So we realized we were in Texas and had to be a little careful. This was about an 8 or 9 footer. And however, right next to it in the reeds was the only purple gallinule that we saw. So there were lots of common gallinables, but one purple gallinule, which is cool. I've been in Florida before, but Lucas hasn't. So there's lots of purple gallinules in Florida, but this is the only one we saw on our trip.
Only one.
At the Trace Preserve was a viewing platform.
This was a little further down the road.
Yeah.
One exit further.
Yeah, we went down
the road. We just
road.
couldn't get enough of pulling over on the side of the road.
Yeah. So right off the front of the viewing platform were a pair of blue-winged teals, which is always a nice bird for those of us from California, and a common gallinule. Then we didn't see that many birds, but we started looking way across the pond, and in the trees on the far side were two of our target species, the roseate spoonbill right here and the white ibis right here. And so we continued to look with our spotting scope, and another tree was filled with cormorants. So this is a neotropic, where's my neotropic cormorant here, and up here, there were double-crested cormorants down here and anhingas right here. So what a wonderful tree that was. And I showed a close-up of a neotropic cormorant just so you can see they're much smaller than a double-crested with a really long tail, and they have a white border to the orange spot on their bill. Neotropic cormorant. And they're actually moving into California and beginning to move north. We've seen them down in the area of the Salton Sea and even north of there. So I think they're moving northward. Here's an anhinga, which we've never seen in California. So a great bird. When I was a kid, we called them water turkeys, and they will sit out and spread their wings and turn towards the sun because they don't have the normal oils in their wings, and they have to dry the water out of their wings.
Snakebird is another.
Yeah, snakebird is another common bird. So here's a nest with a male and female. We think the female was probably incubating eggs.
And hingas go back.
Yep.
They're most closely related to darters from like India and Africa and that region. Not even cormorants. So very unique bird in North America.
If we get to here, you're going to play that. If it's in red, you're going to play it. Okay. So another tree, black-bellied whistling ducks. It actually became our mascot bird because they're so hard to see in California, and we saw them at every turn in Texas. Black-bellied whistling, we'll show you close-ups later. Overhead flew this little blue heron. Pull that up. And then in the corner of the pond, we got another lifer, the fulvous whistling duck. And we saw a few other pairs during the trip, but they weren't all that common. And then out popped a wood duck. So for those of you in the audience, the wood duck is probably one of the most beautiful ducks there is. Hard to beat that. So the next morning, we went into...
Yep. Okay, so here's the wood duck, but also the fulvous whistling duck and the black-bellied whistling duck. I know the black-bellied whistling duck and the wood duck are both tree cavity nesters, which is not very common in ducks. So I just wanted to point that out.
So we went to Winnie and found a hotel, and actually we had no reservations for the trip. So we booked hotels as we went because we were never quite sure where we were going to be. But not too far from Winnie is a little town called Sabine Pass, and out south and east of there, right on the Louisiana border, can you see Louisiana border right here, is a huge marsh. And we got there about 6 in the morning, 6:30 in the morning. It was still dusk. And we started hearing, here. It should be coming out here. Yeah, my phone, yeah. Sorry, we're gonna play the call of a new life bird for me and Lucas. And I've been in the South and I've never seen this bird before. Here it is. Ready? Anyone know that song? It's a seaside sparrow. Seaside sparrow. So it was so dark, my pictures didn't turn out very well, but we found it later. And this is the seaside sparrow right here. Play the note. If it's in red. So then we turned around and we were about to enter the marsh because we couldn't see any of these birds and wade out into the marsh trying to find them. And a ranger came by and said, I wouldn't leave the road because there's a lot of alligators in that marsh. So I think we had good luck on that day. Otherwise, we might have been bait. So play the next bird. Here's the next bird that we heard. Ooh, the Hamiltons are on the family, a wren. It's a sedge wren. So sedge wrens, when I was a kid, were called short-billed marsh wrens, and the marsh wrens of today were called long-billed marsh wrens. But there are very few sedge wrens. If you get to see a sedge wren in California, go see it. We actually were able to see one this spring or winter down at the
Paiute
Ponds, which is on the Air Force Base down
LA County
in LA County, inland. What's the Air Force Base?
Edwards
Air Force Base.
Air Force.
Yeah. Okay. So going further north just a hair, and down the road, we went to Sabine Woods. And this is the Texas Ornithological Society's preserve. And as you can see in this map, about 3/4 of the preserve are filled with a thick forest. And then this part, which must have been mowed before this Google map, is now grass that's a couple feet high.
There's also ponds in between the forest. There's about 3 ponds.
And they
water thrush.
They've got waterways set up and feeders set up. So this is what it looked like from the edge of the grassy field, looking back into the dense woods.
This is a marten box right here.
Yeah, the marten, they can't see your finger, but they can see this. But they put up marten boxes all over Texas, and there's a lot of purple martens. It was very thrilling to see. So we entered from the road, which is thick woods, and one of the first birds that popped out was this beautiful little wood thrush. Big, bold spots, beautiful music that they sang. Then a little further down the trail was this thrush, gray-cheeked thrush. Yep. So gray cheeks are in the east, and they're very, very rare out here. So
they have that white cheek right there.
Yeah, sort of the white patches on the cheek, and a kind of a nondescript, much more of a
stone gray,
blurry kind of stone gray brown bird. Then in digging in the underbrush, we heard this bird digging in the leaves, and we look over, and there's an ovenbird. So this is an ovenbird. You can see just the top of its head. Where's my cursor? Just the top of its head here, this little orange cap that's bordered in black, and these nice streaks, and a beautiful, huge eye with the eye ring. Then we turned the corner and we met this guy in one of the ponds. So we backed up really carefully and went onto another trail deep into the woods. And the first bird that popped out was this beautiful hooded warbler. We're going to see these almost every day. Hooded warblers were common at this point in time. In the trees overhead was an American redstart. And right nearby was a blue-wing warbler. These are not the best pictures in the world, but it's what we could see. And we're trying to give you the experience we had. We're going to take you day by day through our trip so that you kind of experience it the way we did. So here's a blue-wing warbler, thick in the trees.
Our only one of the day that day.
Yeah.
For Sabine.
Yeah. And then in the thicket was this warbler. So look at the head as best as you can. A little blurry, but its striped head is the head of a worm-eating warbler. So they're a southern warbler, like the hooded warbler is more of a southern warbler, and we were in the right spot for them as well. We've seen a few in California. Sacramento had one. Where else have we seen? Davis had one. So they've been around, but they're few and far between.
Sam too.
Yeah. So then the one target bird I really wanted to see, because it's one of the few warblers I haven't seen, and this is the Swainson's warbler. It almost looks, it's in a different genus than most of the warblers, I think all by itself. And it looks almost like an Arctic warbler, or, like the Asian warblers. And here's another view of it poking through the underbrush. Swainson's warbler, it's found in the southeast. So it's found from Texas. I don't even know if it nests in Texas, but over to Florida and up to about Tennessee. And that, if you don't bird there during nesting season, it's almost impossible to find them. And I've never been down there during breeding. Then poking its head over the limb was this little guy. After a few minutes, he came out and started singing. This is a black and white warbler. And my attention was drawn to something else. And all of a sudden I caught something out of the corner of my eye, and the bird flew down on a branch right next to me. So I got this photo of a nice male black and white warbler. Yeah, they have a great voice. Luke, he's my assistant, but I have to wake him up. So yeah, I'll turn the yeah. If you turn the button off on the side, it goes off. Trust me. Yep. There we go. So we often found warblers when we heard them singing. So, although I would say most of the migrants weren't singing.
Yeah, keep in mind, all these birds that we're seeing are migrants.
Yeah.
None of these birds nest there.
Yeah.
I mean, well,
Yeah.
some.
Yeah. So the next bird that we saw just hanging way back in the thicket was a summer tanager, right? So, and then poking in this tree was a red-bellied woodpecker looking for insects. And then the martin boxes had beautiful purple martins. So anyone here been to Texas? Yeah. Birded Texas? Great. So got to know my audience here. We actually ran into a California friend leading a group there during part of the trip. So on a branch over the path was this immature white ibis. And then when we got to the edge of the woods, out popped this bird, black-billed cuckoo. And it didn't sing, but they have a great voice. If Lucas plays it, one of the best voices ever. Almost like a dove. Out in the field were a lot of indigo bunnings and also blue grosbeaks, but this is the one that we got closest to, this little indigo bunning. So then we decided we were meeting Connor and his grandfather on High Island near the end of the afternoon, because they were flying in and arriving in around 1 o'clock and renting a car and getting down to High Island. So we went up along the border of Louisiana towards Port Arthur. And one of the first things we saw on a little waterway was a flock of Forster's terns, and hidden in them was this, well, not really hidden because it's much bigger, was this royal tern. So these are the spots we've been so far. We went out to 8th Avenue where the sparrow, the seaside sparrow and the sedge wren was. We went to Sabine Woods. And so we're headed up this way back to Winnie, because there used to be a road that went right down here, and then it got washed away during a flood, I think, and there's no more road there. So we had to go back to Winnie, and then we were going to go to Anahuac National Wildlife Refuge, and then out to High Island, which is right here, and then eventually down to Bolivar Audubon Sanctuary, Shorebird Sanctuary down here.
So I think the main idea, the main interest with birds flying to these areas are the cursor. Oh yeah, they're flying off from Central America, and they're coming up, and then what you want, I think, is a north wind that will blow them away from the place. I don't know how to explain it, but it just works with birds.
So a north wind,
a bird pushing them
would
away
give the passerines lift. So they like to fly into a gentle north wind, gives them lift. But then once they get there, they're pretty tired. So they land right there on this offshore.
It's the same exact thing with Point Reyes. They want something pushing them away from.
Great point. So here's Anahuac. It's sort of a huge national wildlife refuge in this area right here. And we were just driving roads for a while. Whoops, what happened? Went back. Okay, first thing we saw was this. And in case you didn't think he was big, here's one that came out. This is at least a 10-footer. This was a huge alligator. Fortunately, there was a canal between us and it, because they can outrun a horse. So you can't really mess around with an alligator. So then up close and personal, 2 fulvous whistling ducks, and probably one of the most beautiful birds of our trip. When they tuck their head in, look at the colors on the belly and the back, just really gorgeous bird. Also up close and personal, blue-winged teal. So I love blue-winged teal, and the others were distant. So we got this nice picture of this pair. In the grasses on one of the roads was a eastern kingbird. And then our target bird. So we had target birds. We had a list of about 50 target birds we were hoping to see. Birds that were going to be life birds for us. And this was one of them. It looks kind of like a female mallard, doesn't it? And if you weren't careful, you might think it was a Mexican duck. But if you look carefully at their face, the face is very plain. They have a yellow bill and a very plain neck. When they took flight, the blue speculum is not surrounded by white.
Yeah.
And that's the difference between a Mexican duck and a mottled duck, at least one of the main field marks.
I'm pointing at it with the cursor.
Yeah. The blue speculum has no white bordering it, whereas Mexican ducks have a white.
They can have a little white.
A little white, but
not on both sides.
Yeah. And here you can actually see how pale the face is all the way down to the neck of this mottled duck. So great target species, and we finally found them driving roads in Anahuac, dodging alligators. So then we were just about to leave, and we came to this willow patch, and a pair of orchard orioles were sitting in the willow patch. It was like remarkable. Huh? Yeah. So that later, and then driving out, you say Caracara or Caracara? Caracara, I think. Yeah. Caracara. Okay. So these are crested caracaras. We have seen them in Arizona, but this was another bird we were hoping to see, and we didn't see that many of them. There were some, but not super many. And then it took off, and you could see how beautiful the wing pattern and face and undertail are.
Most we saw in Texas on our first trip there was we came upon a chicken ranch where they dead chickens out every morning after the night and dump them in the paddock.
Huh.
They're
scavengers. Chicken hawks. So then our model bird, the black-bellied whistling ducks, sometime we came on 1 yard and there were over 100 within 5 feet of our car, or 10 feet of our car in that yard.
I'll play the call.
They have a beautiful call. We got to go pretty fast though.
It matches their look, surprisingly.
So then we were going to cross this bridge right here that separates the mainland from this sort of barrier island. And this comes down into the little town of High Island. And in that town, there's actually 4 sanctuaries: Smith Oaks, Eubank Woods, Boy Scout Woods, and Hooks Woods. Well, as luck would have it, I didn't charge my battery the night before and my camera was out. So we met up with Connor and we had a great afternoon, but we decided we're going to go back there in the morning and try to get some pictures. So in the morning, the first place we went, there was a scarlet tanager to greet us. It was dark, so these are a little grainy. I did the best I could to remove the noise, but yes, yeah.
Wait, when was?
Yeah, that big hurricane. Yeah, no, the trees are all there.
They're very healthy.
Yeah. So then, in the mud was this water thrush. What kind is this? You might think northern, but look at the look at the white supercilium that swirls up and the bare white throat.
The legs are also covered in
a Louisiana water thrush right here. And this is not my picture because I came back to take a picture of it and took pictures of it and thought, oh, I have great pictures of a Louisiana. And then I looked at them and it was a northern, but we saw Louisiana when we were going out. So at the main place, this Smith Oaks Sanctuary, there's this beautiful viewing platform. And right at the end of the viewing platform is this heron rookery. Here's a great egret. Down here is a snow egret, another snow egret, roseate spoonbills. And so finally, I got close up on a roseate spoonbill.
Great picture.
So We were looking at this roseate spoonbill and in flew a tricolored heron. And then we heard this noise over our head. We turn around and there's a little prothonotary warbler, and literally it came within 7 feet of our heads and sat there for 15 minutes. So I took at least 100 photos of it, and I'm only going to bore you with 3 of them. So we went on the trail that goes out into the woods below the viewing platform, and the first bird we encountered was another black-billed cuckoo, and this one sat and stayed there. So we got to see it finding caterpillars and sitting waiting for another caterpillar, and the boys went on ahead as I'm taking pictures of the cuckoo, and they pulled up this Acadian flycatcher.
And you can really see the long primary projection in here, which eliminates 99% of all other flycatchers that could be there. It's almost peewee length,
and it has a very large, pretty bright bill as well. And thank heavens I have the boys.
And it was calling.
They know all really these field marks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So on a tree nearby was a blue-headed vireo. We used to call these solitary vireos, and then they broke them apart. And the Cassins is out here, and the blue-headed is mostly back east, as well as a red-eyed vireo. This one caught a little caterpillar. And then our first hummingbird, this is ruby-throated, but
you can't tell from
in bad light. It could be
might as well be a black
chinned. And then a boat-tailed grackle, and it's virtually identical to what is our grackle? Great-tailed grackle. And but when they sing, their song is different.
So they make a lot of noise.
You basically have to hear them. Then out in the woods at Eubanks Woods was a black vulture eating a dead armadillo. So I don't know how the armadillo died, but there was at least 6 vultures feeding on this armadillo. We went back to photograph the Louisiana water thrush, and I thought, oh, this looks good. But then when you start looking at the throat, when you start looking at the throat, you can see there's streaking in the throat, and that it doesn't swirl up quite so much, and the lines are a little bolder. But I'll tell you that the lines on the Louisiana and the northern there were pretty close to each other. So you couldn't just look at one field mark, you had to look at a number. So then we went down to the very tip of this long, thin island, and this is called Bolivar Flats. And we'd heard about the Audubon Sanctuary, which is right about where this red spot is. And so we kept taking these side roads out to the beach to try to get down there. Every time we did, there were 1,000 and people swimming, and it was like the beach was blocked. So we gave up, and we went way down here to the end. And along the way, there were lots of laughing gulls to meet us. And we went to the jetty at the very end. Okay. So they were posing for us along the way. It's just remarkable, the poses they had. And they literally, you could walk within 5 feet of them. It was that amazing. So then we came on a flock of terns. So look, the royal tern that we saw earlier with the big orange bill, the smaller Forster's terns that we have around here. And then hidden in this pack were these 2 guys, okay? Long, thin, black crest with an all black bill with a yellow tip. Sandwich terns. And then possibly common terns were hidden in here too. The what? Oh, Lucas and his friend and I found a sandwich tern at Limatour, and we had great views of it. Great views. We wrote it up. The CBRC board didn't accept it.
We got photos.
But we got photos. And I don't know what's up with that board, but they didn't accept it. It was a completely demarcated bill with only just the tip yellow. We had it in the scope. We didn't get super photos.
Keep in mind, there was also a sandwich tern earlier that year in Alaska, and we've compared photos of the wing, and the black wedge is the exact same, like in the exact same
So we
spot.
think that Alaskan bird came down to Lemontour. Anyways, in the rocks was a ruddy turnstone. And then this flock of birds flew by, the black skimmers. And then there was a willet in breeding plumage. And black terns were flying back and forth everywhere. Just to give you a sense, when we got to the jetty, this is how many terns and shorebirds are out there. And here's the jetty, but we weren't finding our target birds, which were the piping plover and the Wilson's plover. They weren't there. So we happened to run into a birder and he said, no, drive back. You can get out there, drive on the beach and drive as far as you can till you can't drive any further. And there you are at the shorebird sanctuary. So sure enough, we did. This is a reddish egret flying by at the pier. One of the first birds we found was this beautiful black-bellied plover. And then flocks and flocks of shorebirds. This is a flock that the larger, whiter shorebirds are sanderling. There's some dunlins here starting to get spring plumage here, the black bellies. These are dunlins. And then this bird, smaller than either of those, with dark legs and sort of a gray-brown back, was this bird front and center, and we'll zoom in on it, semi-palmated sandpiper. Yep. So that's the common, or one of the common sandpipers in the east, whereas we have westerns here. If you see a semi-palmated sandpiper here, that's a great bird. Back east, if you see a western, that's a great bird. Then right next to it, up walks this little guy, a least sandpiper. To here? Okay. All right. So finally, running in the sand dune was this Wilson's plover. And it really looks like a mini killdeer, except it only's got one band. But look at the size of the bill. The bill is almost too big for this bird. And we got really nice views of this bird. And then a while later, Lucas spotted this bird sitting on the shore, a little piping plover. And as we walked down the beach, more and more they were paired up, just sitting on the beach. We tried not to scare them, so we didn't get too close, but we got a couple of nice photos of the piping plover. They're endangered. So we didn't see any banded ones. But this one, going back, one way to tell them, they look a lot like a snowy plover, don't they? So the coloration of their back is pretty close to a snowy, orange bill, but they have this orange base to the bill and orange legs that snowy plovers don't have. So it's a giveaway.
And believe it or not, even in Texas, they still had the enclosures, even though there were cars everywhere on the beach. So
yeah,
they still had the enclosures.
So we got
well, the majority of the people weren't at the flats. They were more further down because there's like a barricade and all that.
But there were windsurfers who got marooned somewhere and were walking right through the shorebirds. So they really need somebody there to supervise. So you get to Galveston, you have to take a ferry. So we took a ferry, and Connor and his dad went ahead of us because they had rented an Airbnb and we were staying in a motel, which we found that night. But they, on their ferry, this is our ferry. We saw a royal tern in flight, which is kind of a beautiful bird. On their ferry, they saw magnificent frigate bird, and frigate, we didn't get to see one right there.
Go back.
Yeah.
So I'm just gonna explain this real quick.
Go quick.
Looks very similar to a Caspian tern, but the lack of extensive black in the underwing points to it being royal, and it has a longer tail.
Perfect. All right. So because we were behind them, but we didn't worry about where we were going, they had to get to their Airbnb before 6 in order to get the key. So we were having fun. We went to this little place here out of Galveston called Brazos Bend State Park. And it's a huge state park. In fact, they have very few parking lots and you can't pull over on the side of the road. And it was basically designed for someone on a bike. And we were trying to get into these inland lakes here because our target bird, the limpkin, had been seen there, some of the first breeding limpkins in Texas. So we're going along, and Lucas heard this bird. If it's in blue, you got to play it, or red, you got to play it. So play it. Hear the rising call?
Not the typical call of a blue one.
Yeah, but it was singing. So Lucas had me pull over anyways, and we went and found it. And then we were going down. See the next one? You want to play this right now?
Yeah.
So we heard this noise. And it was a long ways off. There was nowhere to park. So I pulled in a ranger's house and parked. And we went running down this trail trying to find a limpkin. And the first thing we found was our little mascot. And then wading through the marsh was a beautiful white ibis. And then by a tree was our immature limpkin. And we watched it carefully for probably 20 or 30 minutes, and it appeared to be stalking something. So what do limpkins eat? All of a sudden, its bill went down in the mud, and up it came with this giant snail about this big around. They primarily feed on these giant snails, and I don't know how they got in this particular wetlands, but there's giant snails in this wetlands. And basically, limpkins only breed in Florida and a few southern states by Florida, and they have never been breeding in Texas before. So we got
in the past
really
2 years, there's been invasion everywhere.
Yeah.
And they've been in like 20 different states.
Yeah.
It's the apple snails.
Apple snails, yeah. Yeah, it is.
It's not apple.
Well, this might be, but where they were seeing.
Where they're eating, they're eating a different snail. I'm sure they've adapted. There's not apple snails everywhere, I'm sure. Yeah. So then also is this beautiful yellow-crowned night heron and a tufted titmouse. So the eastern variety of the oak titmouse. That was not my picture. It was too good for mine. So then we finally made it to McAllen. So remember, it's like 400 miles from where we started to McAllen. So we got in about 9:30 at night. We found a restaurant still open 8, and then crashed at a Comfort Inn, I think, or a Best Western.
No, it was a Days Inn. It was the worst hotel I've ever stayed in. Barely made it through the night.
Anyways, our target place for the morning was Santa Ana National Wildlife Refuge, and it's no this is
Santa Ana, but we mainly just walked around the lakes.
Okay, yeah. I got confused. There were these cool structures that were supposed to be observatories, but there wasn't much to observe up there other than to play around on them. But then we saw our first Couch's kingbird, maybe the first, and a lifer for both of us, golden-fronted woodpecker, related not to a flicker. To me, it looks like a flicker, but more closely related to a red-bellied. And then another lifer, target bird, long-billed thrasher.
Very similar to the brown,
singing
with a few minor differences.
Yeah. And then our mascot. And then along the shores of the pond, a green kingfisher. I've been to Arizona probably 5 times looking for this green kingfisher. I've yet to see one there, but here was one in Texas, and they're not that common in Texas either. They're coming up from Mexico, just barely over the border. Long further down the trail was this little olive sparrow, and we only found it because it was singing. Almost like a field sparrow. Yeah, this is a olive sparrow. Yep.
Mark, we can't really hear the audios of the birds.
Okay. Thanks for letting us know. We might be able to plug it in. I'm not sure.
Can you hear it better now?
Could you hear that one?
Barely.
Okay, we'll try plugging it in and see if that helps. Yeah, it's pretty loud here. Oh, intermission, time for tart. We'll try to plug in our speaker cord into the computer if and can you let us know if this works? No.
Option source.
Okay, let's see if this works any better. So we'll play that sparrow one more time. It may be loud, so watch your ears.
Barely.
Okay, sorry about that. It's one of our audio things that we need to perfect.
Mark, do you have original sound on?
Pardon?
Do you have original sound? Okay.
Sound, sorry. All right, so we're gonna move on because
It also sounds like maybe some other people don't have their mics muted, so we're hearing some other background noises.
Oh, okay. We can hear you really well.
Well, I unmuted it.
Okay, so I'm gonna unplug because it doesn't seem like it helps. So out on one of the ponds and another target bird, lifer, least grebe. And these are very hard to see anywhere in the US, and there's only a few places in Texas really that you can see them up close. They're bright orange eye and they're very tiny grebes. A really fun bird.
This was at Santa Ana?
This is Santa Ana. And then further out the trail was this flock of long-billed dowitchers. We're going to have a dowitcher lesson really fast. You know that the dowitchers in the front here are long-billed because the orange goes back up into the vent and it's heavily barred. And in addition, the coverts on the back are bordered with white. And in addition, on the neck here, there's bars rather than spots. So short-billed typically have spots here. Long-billed, yeah, back down the hallway. Long-billed have bars. So I don't know if you can see, but they're more like a line here, which we call a bar, whereas the short-billed has spots. But flying into this flock were 4 birds that are quite a bit lighter. See those 4 birds? Quite a bit lighter. And those are stilt sandpipers. So here's a stilt up close in this particular picture. You're looking at the dowitchers and you missed the stilt, huh? That happens to me. So then singing in the trees was an Altamira oriole. That was our first of the trip, I think. It's possible we saw them earlier. And when I got their picture, I put it in that particular location because we may have seen it earlier. Also, the great Kiskadee. We've seen these in Costa Rica, but it was really a treat to see them in the US. And then we heard a dove singing from right nearby. And we literally searched for over 20 minutes. And then in the thickest part of this little mesquite, was a white-tipped dove. So this is one of our target birds. It's a lifer for all of us. They've come up from Mexico and there it was. So we get back to the visitor center and one's walking right through. You know, we looked for literally probably a half an hour looking for this bird. Yeah, eating sunflower seeds. He was joined by this little guy. This is an Inca dove, which we have seen in Arizona and in the US, in California. I think of California as being the US. And it was climbing on this tree. And then a white-winged dove, which we've seen in Southern California, and actually even up here we found one at Point Reyes, and yeah.
There's one in Benicia a few years ago too.
Yeah. And then this bird flew in. The green jay. And it took us forever to find this in Costa Rica, and we finally found one in Texas too.
That was the bird I wanted to see most.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean,
Very beautiful bird. We'll show you some more pictures of that later. So the boys were tired of this particular place, so on we moved, and we decided to drive randomly through rice fields in search of shorebirds. And the one shorebird we came on that was closest in view was an American golden plover. And we saw other shorebirds way out, too far for photos, like long-billed curlews and what else? Anything else? Not on this
it was
part,
pretty bad.
but there were some others that we'll talk about later. So we heard about this little park, Estero Llano Grande State Park, and it's got this series of trails. And the first bird we encountered was a clay-colored thrush. I think you're about to hear it if you're with us. A little bit louder. So they sing on and on. It's pretty beautiful. Okay. And then another green jay came in, and it just posed for us. So a beautiful, beautiful bird.
Beautiful yellow
green jay.
undertail,
Yeah.
too, and black retrices.
Do these come up okay on the screen? Pretty good. So there were scissortail flycatchers. Once we got to Bolivar Flats, we started seeing scissortail flycatchers, but we didn't take time to stop for very many. But here was two that like hidden in the wires of a telephone pole. The boys said, let's go look for bridges to see if we can find some swallows. And sure enough, the first bridge we checked had these cave swallows. So they look a lot like a cliff swallow, but they're, instead of having a dark throat, they have a very light russet throat. Instead of having a white forehead, they have this russet forehead. Cave swallows. We actually have seen one in California. Where was that? In Tulare County. But this is a cave swallow, and there must have been 50 or 60 flying around. And it's not easy to take pictures of swallows, in case anyone doesn't know. So then there's this road that used to be, I think, one of the main roads, but was sort of abandoned when they made the highway, called Old Port Isabella Road. It's known for hawks, it's known for sparrows, and aplomado falcons. So the first hawk we encountered was this Harris's hawk that just stood there while we drove right up to it. It was amazing. Further down the road on a post, anyone know what this hawk is? The older we get, it's harder to recall things. But it stayed on this post as we drove up to it, was calling, and you would know it better from its flight photo. White-tailed hawk. This is a white-tailed hawk. So, and you obviously can tell how it got its name, but like when it was on that post, it was just the most gorgeous hawk ever. It's not a huge hawk.
Not a big hawk, just a broad hawk.
Kind of like broadwing, would you say?
No, it's bigger than that.
Okay.
It's like red-tailed, I'd say.
All right.
A little smaller.
So there we go. Then sitting on a wire was this pair, and finally they let us get close enough for this photo. This is a male scissortail flycatcher, the beautiful russet on the wing there and the belly, and the huge long tail. So then we encountered a song that we haven't heard all that often, and it was this sparrow singing away.
Yeah.
Denise is our birder here. I'm impressed with Denise. So this is a Cassin sparrow. For 1 year, they actually came into the Mojave Preserve and nested. And Lucas and I happened to get there at the perfect time, and the males were skylarking, singing away. But this is a Cassin's.
They're back in California again as of yesterday.
Oh wow, that's
Carrizo
fantastic.
Plain.
Oh wow,
4 of them.
So
crazy.
So if you look at the back, it's kind of scaly. See the scale browns? So then we heard the next sparrow off in the distance. Listen to this sparrow. See if it's the same call or different. Sparrow calls are tough. So also out there was this sparrow. Look at the back of this one compared to the back of the Cassins. Cassins is sort of mottled brown and white. This bird has distinct brown lines on the back. This is Bottery's sparrow. Okay. It's supposed to have a bigger bill than the Cassins, but I don't know if that's true. They both look fairly good sized bills. So then it turned front-wise. You can see on the Cassins, it has a fairly sorry, that's not the Cassin. It has a fairly distinct eye line on the rear, behind the eye.
They're more scaly.
More scaly.
More scaly.
And here you can see sort of the malar mustache there of that one. And here's the Botteries. It has a very faint malar, and the face itself is just more plain. More plain.
It's more plain bird.
Bottery sparrow. The Botteries we never saw in Texas, but we went to Arizona this summer. These are Botteries from Arizona. Sorry, we fooled you almost. Yeah, teaching moment. Yeah. Okay. Then a little covey of bob whites flew up. This is not my photo, but we saw them fly, and they called. They actually called. That's what drew our attention to them. And then a little pond along the road, and there was this pectoral and a little least sandpiper next to it. And then in the corner, another stilt sandpiper. See how white the stilt sandpiper is? Very white. I did already. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. He went to the bathroom during the white-tipped dove. Too bad. So a gull-billed tern flew by. So you can see these down in the Salton Sea area. But here was one right here in Texas. And then Franklin's gull flew by. They weren't great views. This was a picture of a Franklin's I took in another location, but we saw one right there too. And then finally,
that's our photo, by the way.
Oh yeah. So we got to the viewing platform, and we saw this nest box about 500 yards away. We put the scope on it, and you could see the female Aplomado, but it wasn't worth a picture. So we got these stock photos off from the Birds of the World. So yeah, I wish. And then we ran into somebody who said, "Oh yeah, there was one right alongside of the road." Well, not when we were there. So it was getting almost dark, but we had heard of this little nature area in Laguna Vista. Here's the bridge over to South Padre Island. So we went to and there's like a 1.5 mile loop, and along the loop are bird blinds with bird feeders and bird seed and little pools of water, kind of like the Hamilton's backyard. Of course, our mascot. But then in flew a buff. What?
So we were driving up to the spot
we
were driving up to the spot that that he was telling you guys about, the bird blinds and the trails and all that. And there was this house with feeders and seed everywhere. And in that yard, there was probably 400 black-bellied whistling ducks, all just calling, counter calling, and
we might rename them to mallard. I'm not sure.
Yeah, they're a trash bird.
Yeah. Anyways, a buff-bellied hummingbird flew into one of the feeders. There was a nice female cardinal in the bush. So we split up. The boys went to different blinds. I went to the blind with a yellow-breasted chat. They didn't get to see it. But we also had a brown-crested flycatcher and another close-up of an olive sparrow, which was kind of nice, and a Lincoln sparrow. So there's the olive. You can see the olive green in the back and the nice eye line and sort of the white in the lores, and a Lincoln sparrow. And then out in the shrubs, Connor located a dickcissel. So is this a female or immature? What is that?
It's just non-breeding plumage.
Yeah, non-breeding.
So female.
Yeah, female probably.
Or first year.
So the next day we were going to go to the Bentsen-Rio Grande Valley State Park to go to the hawk watch. So Lucas and I had this bright idea. If we go in super early in the dark, we'll hear paraques and probably a Chuck Will's widow. So we got there about 5:30 and the mosquitoes were so thick. We had to run and run and run away from paraques were calling everywhere. But we didn't hear a Chuck Willows until later. Chuck Widow.
Here's
Chuck
the
Will's
paraque.
widow. Here's the proctor. So here's a picture, not my picture of a paraque. We actually did photograph paraques in Costa Rica. One came and landed right in front of us, but it was still pretty dark. So then we ran into a birder and we were about ready to run out of the park because of the mosquitoes. And he said, they've just seen a flock of wood storks at the viewing platform. At the same moment, Lucas gets a call from Connor who says, there's a swallowtail kite in the parking lot a mile and a half away. The viewing platform was only a quarter of a mile. I went to the viewing platform. He went for the swallowtail kite. So Lucas, I got to see the wood storks and I'm on my phone saying they're here, but they don't think they're going to stay very long. Hurry, hurry, hurry. And sure enough, Lucas did see the swallowtail kite with Connor.
I saw more than one, I think.
Oh yeah. But they were gone by the time I got to the
They were
parking lot.
with about 500 Mississippi kites.
Yeah. Yeah. But the wood storks did take off, but Connor and Lucas got there before they did. So they got to see this like prehistoric creature. It's like, this is closest to Archaeopteryx of any bird I can think of. So here's what the kites looked like from the viewing platform. Literally, they counted, I think, close to 2,000 kites in that day going overhead. And so I thought, is this all we're going to see is like a silhouette because they were up pretty darn high. And then all of a sudden, every once in a while, they would come a little closer. So what was cool about this bird is the silhouette when they flatten their tail and crunch their neck down in, it's way down inside of the crook of their wings. But when they straighten out, it's out in front. So they really have different silhouettes. And then finally, these two came even closer. So we got nice views of a Mississippi kite.
By the way, LA Birders had a really good Zoom session on Tuesday, all about hawks.
Oh, cool.
Seeing in the real far distances.
How to ID the hawks. Yeah, some of those hawk watchers are just truly amazing. Yeah. So the hawk watchers were counting, and then this flock flew over. So look from underneath, see the bands in the tail. When they got up close, really clearly broadwing hawks. So broadwing hawks, and it's an eastern hawk. It's a small buteo, probably the smallest buteo. And they're known because a lot of, do they have a different number of fingers, Luke, of the broadwing? 1, 2, 3,
They have
4
fingers. Most buteos have 5.
Yeah,
I think.
so they have,
And short-tailed, which can look identical, have 5.
That's discussed in the Zoom session.
Yeah.
In the LA Zoom.
Yeah, cool. So then also black vultures were flying over. And then when it started to get a little lighter, in flew this harrier. This is a female harrier. And I just put this picture in because I just can't get over how much their facial pattern looks almost like an owl. Their facial disc. Then overhead was this Altamira oriole. And then one of the rarest birds we saw all trip was this little guy, because they're not normally in Texas. And
No, they are in Texas.
Oh, they are?
Not there.
Not at this part of Texas.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's a Bell's Vireo. I don't know what I'm saying. So just check with him. This is a Bell's Vireo, but it's unlike the Western one. It's the Eastern version. And it's caught a little caterpillar. It was literally 10 feet below us on the viewing platform.
This park had about 350 species seen or something crazy like that. And we found this, and this was the first record.
Yeah. So the flanks are really yellow. And that's how you separate the eastern subspecies from the western.
The westerns are
Yeah.
all gray.
Yeah. We found these out in the Delta play their call because they have the most amazing call. We've seen them in Southern California too. Yeah, it's like a really intricate and soft, beautiful call.
It's not that soft.
Well, it's soft. They're usually a long ways away. So then play this one. So friends of ours said, oh, there's northern beardless tyrannulates all over the place. We hadn't heard or seen any. And then when we were walking back, we started hearing them. So these we've heard and seen a lot in Arizona. And we actually never got to see one. This is our picture from Arizona, but they were clearly calling and singing, and it's so distinct. Nothing else sounds like that. So our next stop was a target bird at what's called the Old Hidalgo. Hidalgo's a little tiny town, pump house, and it's known for monk parakeets. So here's the monk parakeet. We stopped. We had great views of the monk parakeet. And then flying by was this beauty. Okay. Ring kingfisher. That's, oh, that's too much. So then
different than the belted.
Yeah, very different from belted. So we went to Edinburgh Scenic Wetlands, a small little park. Basically by this red dot, there's a waterways and stuff in it. And so another Altamira. Here was one of our closest, what is it, black crested titmouse? Titmouse? Yeah. And then a close-up of the buff-breasted hummingbird. Beautiful, beautiful hummingbird. And another clay-colored thrush, and kiskadee showing back and front. So there were these little ponds, and it was kind of nice to see both sides of the kiskadee. And then more martin boxes, and a little Inca dove like we'd seen before. And to our amazement, there were least grebes there, because the least grebes are not known to be very many places. So there was a small, I think there were a small group of them, and a northern mockingbird. All right, so at this point, where's the northern mockingbird?
You didn't outline it.
Right down here. Okay.
Oh.
Okay. Yeah. So, okay. So we were able to, we decided we would go back. We took a little trip sideways and found a bronze cowbird. But then we went back to Benson Park at night, because there's a little elf owl that's supposed to come out at a certain hour of a telephone pole. And sure enough, it came right out. This is a plain chakalaka that were running around the park. We had seen them in the morning and heard them in the morning too, but it was too dark for a photo. So we finally got a pretty decent photo.
And the main reason we wanted to go to Benson, well, not the main reason, but one reason is because every night this guy would report these Chuck Will's widows.
Oh yeah.
And we had never, they would have been a lifer for us.
Yeah.
So we kept on going back and back and back, and never heard Chuck Will's widows.
And yet the Paraques were calling everywhere. So anyway.
And there was a swarm of birders looking for this as we were there. And
we were there first, and we were looking at a hole in a different telephone pole. So other people said, I think it's this pole. Yeah. So anyways, the next day was a big day of birding on South Padre Island. And I don't really love big days of birding because you're running, trying to see more and more birds. And I'm speeding up as we talk. But there's a birding center there. South Padre Island is this huge, long barrier island right out here, very thin and narrow. There's a birding center and another center, but there's a birding center, but and the birding center has these walkways out into the marsh that also go into the willow sections. But if you look down the long, thin island, there's a lot of development. But in that development,
there's a lot of parks.
The Valley Land Fund has set aside these little, basically a home-sized lot. and made it a sanctuary. And they have feeders and fruit out in that sanctuary, and they draw in because it's a barrier island, so it's the first island the passerines hit, and they drop down and they see the green, they go into the green. It was phenomenal. So a gray-cheeked thrush, a singing Tennessee warbler, Kentucky warbler. Connor found this one. This is actually a picture from Ohio, but I could never get a picture of this. I saw it a couple times, but it was like so skulky, as they are. Another orchard oriole pair, Baltimore oriole, rose-breasted grosbeak. Another mottled duck. We think we couldn't see the speculum to be absolutely sure, but we're pretty sure this is a mottled. Reddish egret. Yep, banded tricolored heron. There's this little place where there's a waterway, and when we were looking at the seaside sparrows earlier, we had heard king rails and clapper rails. Well, there was a yellow-crowned night heron, and we finally got to see a clapper rail. So it came out just enough to get this photo through the reeds. Yep. So beautiful. I couldn't not put this in the show. That bill is just so sensational on the roseate spoonbill. Then another prothonotary right over our head. It sat there. Black-throated green warbler. Ooh, this is a yellow warbler, but it's the subspecies called the mangrove yellow warbler. And this picture is actually not mine. It's from Costa Rica. It is mine from Costa Rica. Because I could not get a picture. It was a skulky little bird. Connor did.
Connor got an amazing.
He's in the midst of finals right now, so he didn't have time to send me his photo. But black pole warbler. And another close-up of a worm-eating. Ruby-throated hummingbird.
That one you can actually tell is a ruby.
There was this pool at the visitor center, and the birds would come in and take a bath and take a drink, and this veery thrush came in, and we had split up because it was sort of a big day, so we were trying to find as many birds as we could. I said, boys, I have a veery thrush. They go, oh yeah, sure. I said, well, what do you think of this picture? So a wide-eyed vireo. This is one of my favorite birds, white-eyed, because it has a white eye.
I'm playing
yeah.
this.
Here's their song.
Went to Los Naples. That's the good.
Yeah.
Get Chuck Will's Widows over by Los Naples.
That's the white over.
So then catbirds were there. This catbird was loving this bottle brush. It just hung on to the bottle brush. I think it must have been eating aphids or something. I'm not sure. Another orchard oriole. Ooh, I couldn't. Some of these photos just turned out, so I had to share them. Sorry. Then we went way down to the end, where you can get right out on the water. There was a great blue heron.
There's a seal right there.
Another seal
photo
right below it, right down in here. Another ruddy turnstone, and this is kind of an X-rated photo or our photo. And then we came back into the woods, and there was this female hooded warbler. And then a prothonotary sat in this bottle brush while I took its picture. It's my two favorite pictures of the trip. One right here and one right there. Yeah, I mean, that's when I was a kid, there were almost no prothonotary warblers in upstate New York. And two teachers took me to Montezuma Marsh, where they was known to be one pair that they were hoping were breeding. And one of the teachers pulled out the Audubon squeaker and squeaked, and the prothonotary warbler came right out in front of us. It's the first time I ever saw a prothonotary, so it's a special bird. Blackburnian warbler. Cape May. So a lot of people love this burnt orange face and the black streaking on the yellow breast. But have you ever looked carefully at the back of a Cape May? This green with black spots and the black mottled cap to me is just about as beautiful. They're all coming to the bottle brush or this pool. Here's a kiskadee in perfect view. Okay, so the boys, we got word there was a painted redstart. So the boy said, "Oh, Mark, you go there and wait. When you see it, then call us and then we'll come." So I went, I waited. About 30 minutes later, it popped into this. I'm not sure what plant this is, but I don't know if anyone here knows, but there it was in the back of the plant. And then sure enough, I called the boys. They weren't there. It popped up in plain view. They finally arrived and it was hidden, but then it popped onto the fence for the boys. So they got to see it. You might have seen it in the tree too. Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Then finally, a magnificent frigate flew between the buildings and we got to see it. Okay. All right. There was a northern parula and a Nashville and a yellow and an eastern wood pewee and a beautiful immature indigo bunting. It posed in this completely bare tree for me for about 5 minutes. And then right next to it was this blue grosbeak. So there was a construction zone right next to this wooded area. The blue grosbeak flew down onto the orange construction fence, and I turned around about a minute later and a pair of indigo buntings flew onto the fence. So it was one of my favorite spots.
I will. This was a complete fallout day too.
Yeah.
This isn't normal.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
Birds don't normally act like this.
There was a summer tanager just sitting in the grass, red starts in the trees, scarlet tanagers. And that was our day.
Wow.
The boys wound up seeing 150 species. And it was, I don't know if it's the record, but it was a pretty good number for one day.
He mentioned the Valley Fun Lots and like the birding center and all those. But some of the most productive areas were the neighborhoods in between.
Oh, yeah.
Because nobody's checking those. So we're getting new birds that nobody else is seeing. And we're telling everybody about them, and then they can tell us about what they've seen at the normal spots. So we were just birding the neighborhoods in the afternoon, just racking up species and stuff.
Yeah, you can do that when you got a fallout.
Yeah, exactly. I tried that 3 days later. Nothing. Nothing.
But there was nothing in the good spots either, the regular spots.
Right. There wasn't much. There was like a prothonotary left over.
So Connor and his dad had one more day.
We also had an alder flycatcher. In the neighborhood
Uh-huh.
that didn't make it on here, but
So Connor and his dad were going to leave the next day. So we decided to go to the, pronounce it for me, Salineno Wildlife Preserve, which is right down on the Rio Grande. We didn't get there super early, but it's another preserve set aside by this Valley Fund. There's Connor and Lucas on the last day. We were down on the Rio Grande. We didn't see a ton of birds there. We were expecting to see more. We were hoping to see the seed eaters.
Yeah.
And we were quite certain we heard them, but we never got to see them. So an osprey flew by with this little fish. Black vulture flew in. And the kingfishers were flying back and forth.
that's a great shot.
This is not mine, though, unfortunately. Pretty good shot, though. And then in trees on this little island off the way, we met a birding group, and this oriole flew in. We said, "Could that be a Bullock's?" And sure enough, it was a Bullock's oriole, which is not that common. Then we got these just amazing views of this northern water thrush. You can see the streaking on the throat. You can see the wider streaks.
Oh, also I forgot to mention, on the South Padre Island big day, we had a Townsend's warbler.
Yeah.
Which is very, very good. Yeah.
Our target bird, the Audubon's warbler, oriole. Sorry. I had a strawberry in my mouth. So we heard them. We saw them. Every time we got close, they flew away. So turn it down just a little bit. So this is not my photo. All right, think that's enough of that. It's pretty loud here, folks. I'm sorry if it's not loud online. The Audubon's Oriole. And this preserve is known for the Audubon's Oriole. So the last stop with our friends was this Chapeno Road. Oh, I didn't go to the other place. So Lucas saw this turtle in the middle of the road, so he picked it up to move it out of the road to save it. I'm not sure. People who know turtles better than I might know, but I don't know. But then a greyhawk, a greyhawk was sitting on a post, and we've seen a lot of those in California, Arizona, but
No.
Not in Arizona. Sorry. Black-throated sparrow was out there. There was a little verdin. You know, we're kind of in a desert area. It's very hot, and a roadrunner. This is my picture from Arizona. Sorry. I saw it, didn't get the photo. So Connor and his grandfather, Ken, left us. They were going to go for 3 more days of fishing. So, and his grandfather put up with birding for 6 days, so they did pretty well.
Salute to him.
Yeah, but he also brought a great camera, which Connor used, and so he got some nice photos. So Lucas and I went to this tiny little town of San Ignacio, and it's a kind of a mission town, I think. Very poor old town, but there was a viewing platform there, and it was probably 105 degrees. It felt like, anyways. Brown crested flycatcher was nesting material. Western kingbird. You can see white on the edging on the tail. And a hooded oriole. And a peregrine flew by up the river. So it was so hot there, we just couldn't handle it anymore. So we went back.
That was the spot that we were trying to see our target, red-billed pigeon. But we failed and we didn't see any.
Yeah. So it was getting late. So we went to this little park called Quinta Mazatlan Park in McAllen. And it turned out we loved this park so much that we decided to go back early in the morning. There's all these little waterways and thickets of brush, and sure enough, another water thrush. But some of my best water thrush pictures ever, so I've got to include them. So then we went to 10th Street, and it's known the green parakeets come in to roost. And sure enough, went to 10th Street, and there were the green parakeets. So the next morning we got up and we went to McAllen, and there, flying along one of the trails, was our Chuck Quill's widow. And this is not my photo, nor is this, because they flew in and whoosh, they just vanish into the thicket, and you can look in the thicket and still can't find them. Another slew of Mississippi hawks kites rose out of the forest, and that was pretty marvelous to see. There was a curved-billed thrasher and our long-billed thrasher, very similar to a brown thrasher. We did see a brown thrasher, I think, but we didn't get photos. And then we went to a dump, Brownsville dump. You can't miss the dump because there was a kelp gull there, which, despite the 45-mile-an-hour blowing filth, it didn't show. But a Franklin's gull came by really close, and we thought we had the rare crow. What's this crow?
Oh, yeah.
Tamalupus. But and people had been reporting it, and this was a tiny little crow like raven. And then we met the birder who goes there and really counts the Tamalupuses. He said there hasn't been one this year, and people are reporting them, and they're seeing these tiny little Chihuahuan ravens. So I guess we didn't see the Tamalupus.
When you see one, I think it'll be obvious.
Yeah.
Though.
Yeah. We went back to South Padre, and because we're hoping for fallout, this was 3 days later, maybe the warblers keep turning over. And so I used it as a day to take some photos of birds that I hadn't seen very well before. And yet we're seeing the same birds we had seen. So here's a painted bunting, orchard oriole. Here's a parula. grosbeak,
Cape May.
Cape May warbler. This is my favorite photo maybe of the trip. Indigo bunting. And this black and white came in. It was pretty nice. Another parula in a Tennessee.
Another Tennessee.
Yep. And of course, our favorite bird, the white-eyed vireo. Then we ran into a birder who said, "Oh, did you hear about the fallout on Corpus Christi Island?" We go, "What?" We had to go through Corpus Christi in order to get to Los Maples. So we're in the car in a flash, headed towards the Rose Hill Cemetery, where the fallout was the thickest. And here's what the cemetery looks like. There's graves and a beautiful assortment of all kinds of trees. Lots of space so you can see the birds. Up in the trees, a blue-wing warbler, followed by a golden wing warbler.
That was our first of the trip.
First of the trip, golden wing.
Yeah.
Cerulean warbler. And this cerulean was showing off. I just couldn't stop taking photos of it. And you should see my previous cerulean photos. It's like, is it a warbler or what is it? Uh-oh, what happened? Uh-oh, there, okay. Oof. So, and a little hooded just sitting on the ground. Magnolia up in the trees. A parula. An ovenbird on the pavement. The wind was blowing. You can see the wind. And a flock of male painted buntings. My favorite picture of the trip, this painted bunting. There was a wood thrush, another worm eating, a yellow-throated warbler, a yellow-throated vireo. Look at the bill on this vireo.
Have we shown one of those yet?
No. Look at the bill on the warbler, a warbler bill compared to a vireo bill. You know, really, really pretty noticeable. Lucas found a least flycatcher. This is not our photo. I could never see. I every time I got to it, it was like flying away. So, but here's a least flycatcher and a yellow-billed cuckoo. So, one of our last stops is the Maples, Los Maples State Natural Area.
Great place, really
It's
recommend it.
North and east of San Antonio. It's this huge state park with canyons and trails up into the canyons. And it's known for our target bird, golden-cheeked warbler.
That is our photo.
Yeah, yay! I got a good one. And here's another one. We actually were seeing them distant, and I'm going like, these are not going to turn out that well. And later on in the walk, one came in and perched. We were actually coming down a ridge, and so it was below us, and we got even to it, and there it was. So yeah, here's a yellow-throated warbler. So our target bird, even more than the golden cheek, was black-capped vireo. So right after this, a black-capped vireo flew out right in front of us. It was literally from me to you in the open. I started to take the picture and the battery died. And I had forgotten to bring a battery. So Lucas, run back to the car about a mile back. Run, hurry. So by the time he got back, the little vireo was gone. But then this bird appeared, and this is
Tropical parula.
Tropical parula was there at Los Maples. So this is a lifer for both of us. A great bird. There was a Chihuahuan raven.
Nope.
Huh?
Common raven.
Oh, common raven? Okay. Sorry. So this is, we hiked up this ridge, and this is a photo just for you to sort of see the landscape. It's pretty dry, but then down in the forest, it's a little more lush, and out came a black-capped vireo.
This is an immature.
Yeah.
Very different than the adults.
So I don't know if this is the same bird even, but back in the brush was a totally different, probably an adult bird with a really black cap and the green back. It was there must have been 100 branches between me and this bird. It was like all I could do to sharpen it. The same with this one. This one turned out a lot better. No, I didn't put it in.
Well,
We're pretty sure we saw a black whiskered vireo, which would be a first state record.
Yeah.
no,
It-
no, no, no.
Or would it?
Like
It has
10th.
It has black. It was a red-eyed vireo or a black whiskered. It had great black whiskers. Was singing kind of a strange call, but sometimes red-eyed vireos can have a black whisker, I guess. So
In Florida?
Florida,
Yeah.
yeah.
I cannot hold up. Can you
Yeah.
broadcast my phone? I want to show this.
No.
No, this is a field
Yeah.
sparrow.
That's a field sparrow. So we heard a singing field sparrow
need
to
to-
our dumbfoundment. We turned around, and there it was.
I need to broadcast.
You can't. We can do it to them. Oh, you could take it around and show them. Here's our picture of the. I didn't put it in because we weren't sure what it was, and just no, just show it to people. Yeah.
Here's the very.
A little lizard. Is this a collared lizard? Does anyone know?
I don't know, I put all mine in the naturals to get in.
I promise we're almost done. So
Yeah.
we went to.
Yeah.
We went back to Sabine Woods just thinking, hey, maybe there's a whole new set of warblers, but there weren't. So we started driving fields. Here was an eastern meadowlark. A dixisel came right out, a real adult dixisel.
It was making like a red-eyed song. It was bizarre.
And then our first
Maybe a hybrid,
of
who
the
knows?
trip, upland, we called them plovers when I was a kid, but now they've changed it to sandpipers. They used to be called upland plovers. They nested in the little town where I grew up in upstate New York. There were phalaropes, redneck Wilson's phalaropes out in the pond. And we went back to Anahuac area.
Did we?
Yeah, and there was a boat-tailed grackle, kingbird, and then a close-up. This was the best upland sandpiper we got to see. So, where is this? This was way out in Anahuac. We were trying to see yellow rails. Trying to hear. There was a white-tailed kite and some gallinules. I'm getting the cutoff sign from my wife. This is where we actually got the seaside sparrows because the sun was perfect. I just couldn't resist. It's such a beautiful sparrow. And we're about to fly out. We went north of Houston where the airport is, and we went to W.G. Jones State Forest for our last two target birds. So it's a pine woodlands forest. Like Carol went there almost the same time that we did. And this is a pine forest like Carol spent quite a bit of time. So the first bird we saw was this copperhead. We almost stepped on it, and there were a lot on the edges.
That's the first.
That's for you, Pam.
Is that a rattlesnake thing?
A copperhead? No. Look at the tail. I don't think they're a rattlesnake. Yeah. But there were a lot of them, and they are
Yeah, they are
poisonous.
poisonous.
Yeah. So this is a great habitat for the pine warbler. So I took it in the pines just so you could know what it was. And a brown-headed nuthatch.
I want to play the call. This actually has one of the cutest calls on the planet. Hold up. That's the brown-headed nuthatch.
Then finally we started hearing woodpecker noises, and there was the red cockaded woodpecker. And I took a lot of photos, but they were way high up. When I got home, all I had photos of were the females, but they were in pairs. And I just somehow didn't manage to get a male.
And we found a nest hole while we were there.
Oh yeah, yeah. And Carolina chickadee, indigo bunting, and the last bird of our trip, the only time we saw a red-headed woodpecker. So that's our trip. I hope you guys enjoyed the photos and questions and answers there.
So when you had the fallouts, did you have a huge rain the night before? Or just the wind?
It's
You
the
know-
wind.
Yeah. You know what? Did we have rain?
No.
It never rained the whole time we were there. Can you
Yeah, we
imagine?
had huge rain.
If we were there this year, you probably would have been blown off the planet.
And-
Yeah.
What I had the premonition to text a guy who used to live in California who now lives in Texas.
Oh.
And I was like, hey, when's the best weather? We're gonna be here for like a week. When's the best weather for South Padre? And he told us that day. And so we went that day and we weren't disappointed.
But the Corpus Christi fallout, the Rose Hill Cemetery, that was truly, I mean, to see magnolias and cerulean, golden wing, blue wing, and they were all really, you actually could see these birds.
It's gonna, well, yeah, I guess you didn't have trees anywhere else there? Why
Oh,
did you
no,
just-
Sabine Woods is really thick
No,
with trees.
no, the cemetery, did you went in Corpus?
There were a lot of trees.
He was wondering why did it happen there at the cemetery?
Yeah, right.
It's kind of elevated. Like it's kind of a hill.
Grandfather.
And then also it was high overcast in that area. So I think that could be another reason. And it's probably the best place in Corpus Christi.
I think geographically somehow things funnel to that hill.
It's a hill.
Yeah. It's known as one of the best places in Corpus Christi, the
Yeah,
The Rose
that's where-
Hill.
That's where the guy from Strasbourg lives.
yeah. Any other I mean, we had, I think, for Lucas, at least 46 live birds on this trip. So, and for me, not quite as many, but almost as many. Yeah.
There's how many species, do you know?
We saw 285 species in 10 days. Yeah. So it was pretty, and the boys planned everything. I didn't plan anything. So folks that are still here in our Zoom session, thank you for hanging in there with us. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. We'll stop sharing and we look forward to seeing you next September the 14th when the Hamiltons will present on their African safari. There we go. I don't know if this is still even going. Is it going? Is anyone there?
Right here.
Yep.
Where you go,
Oh. Oh, we still have people. Yay. Thank you guys. Thanks for coming. And don't miss out on Andrew Ford's walks coming up. If we post a beginner birds walk, we'll send it out as an e-blast. And the June field trip is to Point Reyes, and the May trip is this Saturday. Thanks very much, everyone, for hanging in there. Sorry it
Thank
was
you,
so
guys.
long, but you saw over 300 photographs of birds from Texas. So thank you, everyone. Have a great summer if we don't see you, and we'll see you back in the fall. Take care. We're going to end the meeting.